Thank you. Test. Great. So I have the immense pleasure today to be moderating an extremely rich panel of industry mover across industries, maybe from e-commerce, health tech, education technology, and fintech, unfolding the great potential of startup and entrepreneurial activity in the Middle East. So before giving actually the floor to our dear panelists to introduce themselves, their businesses, we will be discussing today a lot on what's actually the current landscape of entrepreneurship in the Middle East and what is its future going forward. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming first to my right-hand side, Bassel Kousa. Bassel is actually a co-founder of QuickUp and CEO of QuickUp. It's a UAE-based logistics company that provides a last-minute, basically, e-commerce delivery across the whole UAE. Welcome, Bassel.
Thank you. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about QuickUp. QuickUp is a fulfillment solution provider for e-commerce businesses in the GCC. Basically, what we do is we provide an end-to-end solution for e-commerce businesses, everything from storage down to global shipping to customers across the world for these merchants. The way that we do it is that we integrate all the sales channels of these merchants, whether they're selling on Noon, Amazon, through their own website, through social, and then we integrate our systems into theirs. We tell them to send us their product. We carry their products. When an order comes through, we take care of whatever is needed for these products to land with their customers wherever they are in the world. And the reason why we've been successful is because we've paid specific attention to the post-purchase experience. So we really focused on making that delivery touch point for the customer seamless. Simple returns, easy to track, but also we made it an opportunity for merchants to redirect traffic back onto their own website and increase their reorder rates. Now, when I say this, it sounds like quite smooth and rosy, but actually the business started here in London. 4 years ago, we were in an immense bloodbath with Uber Eats and Deliveroo. We were head-to-head. The business was actually a marketplace for food delivery on demand. And it was then that we realized that, okay, that is not going to work. We needed to think creatively about how we kind of find a new opportunity. And we actually looked at the GCC, and we realized there's an opportunity in the e-commerce industry and in enabling businesses there. So we pivoted, and that's where we are today.
Amazing. Thank you, Bassel. Next, we have Faris Ghandour. Faris is the founder and CEO of Toon. It's a MENA-based startup building the Arab world's first mental wellness ecosystem. Faris is also a board member at BitOasis, the first and largest digital asset platform in the Middle East, and also a partner at Wamda Capital. We have a lot to talk about Faris today. Please, the floor is yours.
So a bit of background on me. I've been investing in technology businesses in the Middle East for the past 10 years, mostly in the largest 3 markets, the Emirates, Saudi, and of course, Egypt. We have done investments in other markets like Turkey and East Africa, South Asia. But of course, we stay true to our home region, and we've been there since the early days of investing and have gratefully seen the ecosystem grow to the size that it is today. And it's probably tenfold assets under management than when we first started. I also as Aman mentioned, I co-founded Toon. So we're a mental health startup. Our objective is to build an end-to-end mental health care platform. Just as an anecdote, only 4% of Saudi's Ministry of Health budget goes to mental health. So we largely believe that this is a significant under-tapped opportunity. The Saudi market is ready for it, and that's where we launched Toon out of. We started as a self-help app, and now we're going into clinical care, hopefully in Qatar, Saudi, and the UAE, launching in-person clinics, starting with Jeddah, Qatar, Doha, of course, and Dubai, and hoping to expand that into a chain of clinics across the region, hopefully. So I guess, I wear a bit of both hats. I'm still involved in Wamda. a bit more, maybe less proactive than I used to be for various reasons, but my passion remains to be mental health. That's a domain I feel gives me and my team a lot of energy to keep building in. A lot of the talent that we've been able to attract is kind of mission driven. It also has helped. It has helped me get some operating experience that sometimes can benefit some of our portfolio companies. And then the last thing I do, of course, among a bit of other things, I sit on the board of a couple of companies, but the one you mentioned is BitOasis. We've been operational since 2015. We do close to $4 billion in annual volume in crypto assets exchanged in the region. We are the largest on-ramp, off-ramp exchange, which means fiat to crypto exchange in the region. And despite what all the obstacles that are being faced in the region, it's these markets when building gets the most interesting and exciting. So yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks.
Thank you, Faris. Next, we have Noor Budai. Noor is the founder and CEO of Bounce, a corporation with the mission of building startups for the $100 million annual recurring revenue club. Welcome, Noor.
Thank you, Aman. I'm the CEO and founder of Bounce. Bounce is a SaaS platform for the early learning industry. Our mission is to collaborate the early learning industry. We saw that in terms of EdTech, there was a lot of attention to K-12 and higher education and even professional learning and professional development. And there wasn't much focus on the early learning industry, even though it's a very large industry and it's growing, especially in the Middle East. In the Middle East, or everywhere actually, the early learning industry is directly correlated with women in the workforce. The more women in the workforce, they need more places to keep their kids for daycare and early education. And this is where we saw a lack in the market. We know that this industry is going to keep on growing, so we wanted to be there to service this industry. In terms of business model, we're a SaaS platform, so we're subscription-based. And from a product perspective, what we try to do is we try to make sure our platform and our behaviors mimic behaviors our users are already used to. Teachers already have a lot on their plate, they're underpaid, and they don't want to learn a new technology or a new system. So what we try to do is mimic behaviors that they're used to, how to post on Instagram, on Facebook, reply on WhatsApp. So because our platform mimics behaviors they're used to, they adopted the product very easily. And now we're looking to grow our traction and our product from the Middle East and beyond into the UK and US markets.
Amazing. Thank you, Noor. And last but not least, we have Khalil Alami, the founder and CEO of Teller, the leading online payment gateway and an e-business awardee of the year. Welcome, Khalil.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. A little bit about Teller. So Teller started back in 2014, solving for a problem of how do merchants or businesses accept payments online from their customers. And this is where we developed our own proprietary technology in order to launch an online payment gateway where it enables those businesses to do just that, and doesn't stop at the ability to accept only cards, but we moved over and morphed into a big array of various payment methods, whether they were the usual ones or the alternative ones, such as the up-and-coming different mobile wallets or directly from a bank account. And since then, at that point in time, the ability to do that was very, very hard. You needed to go to PayPal at a very high cost or find some sort of a payment gateway somewhere in the West that would service you, and you would have very bad customer service at very high prices. So the king was cash on delivery, and maybe Basil would have a lot to say about that. And we were solving for that problem. And what we did is, since we did our own proprietary technology, we were able to provide a customized experience for our merchants where we can customize that journey for any startup or any business the way they accept and capture the revenue. So it could be different in a certain way for QuickUp, but a different way completely for Kareem. And we were able to pivot and customize that experience for each and every one of them.
Amazing.
Thanks.
Thank you, Khalil. So let's dive directly into an exciting, fiery conversation. So the Middle East has seen in the past 3-4 years a surge in the number of startups and the entrepreneurial activity as a whole across industries, but maybe particularly in fintech, in e-commerce, and in health tech. So across these 3-4 years, I would like to hear more from you. What are the shifts that you have witnessed, basically, that led to this rapid growth and maybe incentivize entrepreneurs like you to thrive and take this leap of faith and start their own ventures in the Middle East? So maybe we'll start with you, Khalil, actually.
Sure. I mean, there's no doubt that there has been a rise of startups coming out of the MENA region. Shifts happened, yes. I would say I would focus on, first of all, digital transformation. We've seen digital transformation just grow very rapidly in our region. And with digital transformation, it created the ability for entrepreneurs to come up with innovative, technologically advanced business models. At the same time, we must not forget that the government support that we've seen, specifically in certain GCC or all throughout the MENA region, where governments invested in fostering good relationships and environments for entrepreneurs to be able to come up with new business ideas or innovate and what have you. We've seen the likes of smaller countries like Jordan, where they created an excellent incubator like Oasis 500. Yep. We've seen DIFC FinTech Hub in Dubai, where they created this hub for fintech innovation, and then the same as Hub 71 in Abu Dhabi, and others, and many others. So the government's played quite a big role. And then let's not forget, like, we've heard throughout the day from His Excellency, His Highness, the Ambassador of Saudi Arabia. At 45, he's older than 80% of the population. Yeah. Yes, we have a youth population that can adapt and has adapted to a technologically savvy entrepreneurship cradling environment. At the same time, also what we've heard from also the ambassador of Kuwait this morning, where he said, well, we have Vision 2030 in Saudi, we have Vision 2035 in Kuwait, we have Vision I don't know what in different, but let's not forget that all these visions are all collaborating together in order to create a MENA general vision, and that collaboration also created a good shift in creating those startups coming out of the MENA region. So I think it's a bunch of different things all happening all at the same time that created this shift.
Amazing. Bassel, from your perspective, what's one of the biggest shifts that you really felt it's incentivized you to start and move actually maybe from London to the UAE?
I mean, we moved from London to the UAE because we had kind of expanded there and saw the market potential. But actually, like, I'm going to give a bit of a different and maybe obvious perspective. Mm-hmm. COVID.
Okay.
Basically, COVID happened. 2018, we landed in the UAE. E-commerce penetration was at like about 7%, right? So basically, 7% of all spend towards retail was going online. Mm. And so you looked at an e-commerce landscape which was mainly enterprise dominated. You had the couple of marketplaces, Noon, Amazon, Nemshi, and then you had a few big retailers that had enough budgets to be online. There wasn't enough for small businesses to be able to compete. COVID happens, and everything accelerates all the way to e-commerce penetration rate now being above 20%. Now, what happened with that is more people going online, more traffic online, more opportunity for small businesses to take a piece of that pie. The artisanals started to pop up. The entrepreneur-led e-commerce businesses started to pop up. And guess what? Like, these guys have pain points across the entire value chain. They're thinking about how to do content management, how to advertise, how to have payment solutions, how to deliver. And all of that creates a whole bunch of opportunities for a lot of different businesses to start to exist. Absolutely. I will not diminish the fact that there was fertile ground for that. Demographically, from a kind of sort of like a geographic landscape perspective, like these cities are structured in certain ways that allowed for this to happen. But also from a regulatory standpoint, when this growth in online was happening, all of a sudden you had a lot of drivers on the road. And I'll give you something from our experience. Within the first or second year of that curve acceleration, dialogue started to happen with the different regulators. We're a small startup. We had an immediate seat on the table with the Road and Transport Authority in the UAE, for example. And we helped shape the policy that enabled these kinds of businesses to flourish. These countries are sort of, and specifically in the GCC, these countries are sort of run like startups. They're quite agile. And so that allowed for these businesses to thrive.
Yeah. Farid, from your perspective, what's a driver for a successful MENA-based company in the region, building on the shifts that we're seeing and the enablers that are being put in place?
Very good question. I think besides the kind of the demographic trends that Khalil spoke about, meaning that the youth bulge, let's call it, price of connectivity going down, the cost of launching a business, and now going all the way down to you can launch a business with a few $1,000s. All of that aside, you've had major events that caused a flywheel in the region, right? So what happened was, let's find an inflection point. Let's call that inflection point the Careem exit, right?
Yeah.
Prior to the Careem exit, only founders with a very risk-on mentality would dare to found a business, and partly because the ecosystem wasn't as nurturing. So first inflection point that happens is to start the flywheel is you have an exit that makes people money, that makes the early talent money, that makes the founders money, and makes investors money. What ends up happening is you start to branch out, like it's like a Merkle tree almost. So what ends up happening after that, the next step of the flywheel is founders feel emboldened to now leave their jobs and found businesses. So good talent becomes available on the market because guess what? They've realized that this can be more financially rewarding than continuing to work in a corporate or what have you. So the third step in that wheel is once you have good founders, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get good capital. Right? Good storytellers, good founders with experience are now going to suddenly be able to go to investors and pitch an appealing story and with track record. So that's the third step in the founder wheel. What's going to happen after that is you're going to start having more and more startups in the ecosystem and more founders in the ecosystem, and government is going to pay attention.
Yep.
So when government pays attention, what do? They make regulation easier. What happened prior to the Careem exit? The UAE, Jordan, and Egypt were the ecosystem where you launched. You would only scale to the GCC. Dubai were very quick to realize that they don't want to be a hub to scale to. They want to be a hub to launch from. And then Saudi realized that after. Kuwait was always a hub to launch from. Kuwait is the heart of the Khaliji ecosystem, arguably, with Flowered, Carriage, what else do you have? Talabat, of course. So you start having that flywheel whereby the entire ecosystem starts to play together. Now you have easier laws to launch a business. What's going to happen? You're going to get more people founding a business. You're going to attract more talent. More funds are going to start to make money. And that flywheel starts to get going. So these things happen exponentially. Humans tend to think in a linear fashion. I'm going to double this year. I'm going to double next year. It doesn't happen that way. Inflection points happen, and if you're not there during an inflection point, you're gonna miss it.
Absolutely.
So that's a driver. That's one of, I think, not a driver, but I guess that's the positive flywheel.
Yeah. No.
And the problem with that, not to keep talking, is as soon as one of those things falls, you can have a death spiral. LPs start to not invest in funds. Funds are not going to invest in founders. Founders are going to want to go and tighten their belts and stick to. So the key to observe now is when the price of oil goes down and when sovereign wealth funds in the region start to tighten their belts. Are they going to do that to the ecosystem, or are they going to do that elsewhere? Because we need the sovereign wealth funds to pay attention, because that's really what kickstarted the ecosystem post-COVID.
Amazing.
I'm not part of anything.
So, Faris, you tapped into the example of Kareem, and maybe I'll build on that. So, for those who do not know Kareem, Kareem is a subsidiary of Uber that got acquired by Uber around January 2020 for almost 30 billion US dollars. And I want to carve out here a discussion and build on the example of Kareem and Souk and the likes. So, MENA and many emerging markets were famous for actually copying business models from more mature markets such as the US and the UK and the sort, Kareem and Uber, Souk and Amazon, Tabi and Klarna and what have you. How can founders in the MENA region transcend from this copycat business model and start their own innovative business and products? Or maybe not. Maybe we are actually, this is our forte. Maybe the Arab culture actually find value in actually these copycat business models. So maybe Khalil, I want to hear from you.
I mean, it's true that a lot of entrepreneurs look at a successful business model, maybe in the West or in an advanced market, and they come into an emerging market, replicate that. The idea here is it only the business model that is driving success, or is it the only key factor? I don't think so. This is the first thing I would say. And the other thing is, do they really need to transcend from that? I mean, is copycatting a bad thing? Like you said, Kareem, okay, they copycatted the business, they copied the business model of Uber. They came to the Middle East, they started in Dubai. And then they looked at, what can we do for different? They did hyper-localization, women drivers for women as a culture. It was an issue. Arabic mobile application, accepting cash because card penetration was low. So that hyper-localization gave them the edge over Uber that ended up buying them 7 years later at 3 billion. Yeah. We look at Noon versus Amazon. Noon started by Mohammed Al-Abbar in the UAE, expanded into Saudi, was able to replicate the Amazon model from an e-commerce perspective. And then Amazon came into the market, bought out Souk and others, and Namshi and whatever, not Namshi, sorry, Souk and others, and decided to. Today in Saudi, Noon is much bigger than Amazon. So is it a bad thing? I'm not sure. Do we need to transcend from that? Yeah. I'm not sure. But at the same time, are there other entrepreneurs that are trying to solve for other problems? Yes, there are. Is there success? Are there any success stories in such business models? Yes, there are. So I don't think it's only a business model issue. I think it's a whole market dynamic. Yeah. There's many things that we need to discuss with this point. So
I'd like to add something on that.
Sure, Bassem.
But I think that's like one of the main advantages that the region has. If it's a market that is slightly later in the development cycle to the Western markets, you can look at models that have succeeded. Technology is going to be cheaper. They've made all the mistakes. You can learn from that. You can execute faster, cheaper, with less capital. And then you can do all the localization to kind of create more context and become even better than those original businesses and much more made for the people of the region. So personally, I think that's a bit of an edge that the region has in being able to do that and do that fast.
Absolutely. Yeah. Noor, I would like to hear from you on this spot. I know we've discussed that point and you have a lot to share here.
Yes, so definitely I agree that it might not be a bad thing. That if the copycat model works in the region, why not? Let's capitalize on that. But one of the reasons why I personally believe that we are doing a lot of copycat models is that for us to bring in new or unique business models, this needs innovation. And what really drives innovation is capitalism. And I feel like if we focus on the privatization of the MENA region, of the Arab world, we're going to find a lot more innovation and a lot more entrepreneurs going out and chasing innovative ideas.
But we have to add to that not every copycat or any copy will absolutely succeed. 100%. So you'll find also an entrepreneur that copied a model that is successful elsewhere that failed completely in the Middle East, or vice versa. Yeah. But and I think, again, towards innovation, to what Noor said, yes, it's going to create innovation where entrepreneurs are going to come in and maybe their first try is going to be a copycat model, but then their ability to adapt and shift and fail once and twice and three times and then move into a successful business model that solves a real problem, that is something that we should look at.
100%. Noor, back to you. And we mentioned a lot the aspect of volume as a challenge, maybe also to that. And I know in the go-to-market strategy of Bounce is to tap, as you mentioned, into the more mature markets such as the US and the UK. Can you talk more about this strategy and what's your vision directing to that, please?
Yes. So a lot of tech businesses, their goal is to scale. Their goal is volume. And one of the issues that we see in the MENA region is that we don't have enough of this volume, especially in one culture or let's say one dialect. When you look at the United States, you have 300 million people. You can market to them in the same marketing message, same marketing materials, same communications. When you come to the GCC, for example, you need to market Saudi with the Saudi dialect or with the Saudi marketing and messaging. You need to do sales in Kuwait in a very different way than you would do in Egypt, for example. So with Bounce, what we realized is that for us to reach the scale that we want to get to, and our target was or is 12,000 customers, preschools basically, that we would need scale and we would need volume, and we'd only find that in more mature and bigger markets such as the US. I'll just give you a perspective to show you what I mean in terms of numbers. Right now, we have over 150 clients in the GCC. The number of preschools or eligible clients that we can go after between Kuwait and KSA is around 2,000 preschools. So we've captured about 7.5% of Kuwait and Saudi market. If you look at 7.5% of the preschool market in the US, that's over 17,000 preschools. The US has over 130,000 preschools compared to 2,000 in Kuwait and KSA. So for us, for a SaaS model, when we look at these numbers and we look at the difference in scale, this allows us to focus our strategy on the bigger markets. That doesn't mean there isn't any potential in the GCC, but it might be in different types of business models.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Noor. Throughout the day today, we've heard a lot about culture and how does it feel like to be in the Middle East and what have you. Faris, to you. You are the first of the second generation of founders or starting their own businesses, and which means basically you're trailblazing in your own way a certain culture. So maybe 10 years ago, people were dying to modeling themselves in Silicon Valley, which might perhaps not be the case as much today because of the culture eating itself. So how do you see the culture element of starting your own venture in the Middle East? How does it feel like in terms of culture and the people there?
First, I'm going to give an anecdote to the point you mentioned about scaling across the region. When we're done, not now, because you need to listen to us now. Check out a video on YouTube about how Trivago tried to launch in Egypt. Notorious, 10 years ago. No further comment. You'll research it. Say Trivago Egypt, and you will understand exactly why understanding the local cultural nuances matter. They got a Syrian person with an Egyptian accent, and it was a disaster. So check it out. So the culture. So I'm fourth generation founder. My grandfather started a shoe care business in Beirut in the 30s.
Nice.
My grandfather started the Royal Jordanian Airline in Jordan. My father started Airvex, and I started Tuhun. But Tuhun is a small business. We're 15. So I don't know if I'm the right person to comment on culture because I haven't built that scale yet on a relative basis. But I'll give you some more thoughts about that. I think that starts to matter more at scale, and maybe others who've built bigger businesses can comment more on that. I think the region is, culture is relatively underrated. What I found as well is, talent on the market isn't necessarily talent you're able to acquire no matter how much money you have. That's one learning, is I don't think that the correlation between how well capitalized your business is and your ability to attract and retain talent is as important as, in my opinion at least, from what I've seen from other businesses I sit on the board of, as your ability for the best talent on your team to see that what they're doing is generating revenues. So you can go and raise and do this and that and all of it, right? But if the team doesn't feel like what they're doing on a day-to-day basis isn't translating into something meaningful as fundamentally for the business, then you'll always be on shaky ground. So, and we've seen that, right? We've seen that with big businesses that have, for all intents and purposes, failed, like Swivel, right? So public company went public, what, $1.x billion, $40 million of revenue. The team was largely, kind of just not, it was a good story. There was a good front, but the team was, and you have a lot of businesses below the radar where the team, like, for example, Haraj in Saudi. So probably a unicorn in of itself, self-finance, probably makes over $100, $150 million a year in revenue. Team of 40, and the retention of the team is just mind-boggling because, these guys are sitting there and they're seeing that what they're doing is translating. So I think, that's my learning. I don't know if I can comment further on culture again, because my business isn't of size, but I do think that the best moat is not your market moat, it's not your technology, it's not anything you do besides your ability to retain your team. And your ability to retain your team is only as good as your culture.
Yeah.
So.
Spot on, honestly.
And just to add to that, Iman, I was watching a video, this American CEO, he was talking and he was saying, what does it mean to be a CEO or a leader? Whether you're a CEO of a company or you're launching a startup or even a leader of a country. What it means is you are a chief meaning officer and you need to give meaning to your people from the smallest person on your team to your C-suite. You need to show everyone that what they're doing today has meaning, what they're doing next month has meaning, and what they're doing in the future in 12 months or towards the North Star also has meaning, and why what they're doing today is important to the end goal. And I think this is very important, and I really use that piece of advice with my team, and just showing them meaning from our weekly huddles to our monthly meetings, just really giving them meaning into what they're doing.
That's a call for all CEOs to be called CMOs.
It's very important to understand that also culture eats strategy for breakfast anytime.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a very good quote. And I think it's the culture that you build within your enterprise or company or startup has to really reflect also the brand values of your company, from the smallest employee all the way to the top. And those values really are represented. The moment you have it in your culture, they actually reflect your brand, whether it was with your customer, with your shareholders, with your communication, with anything. And I think culture is quite, I think, one of the most important aspects of any company.
No, totally agree.
The concept of meaning is actually like super important. Like, look, we built a business. We were 5 co-founders at the start. The company went up to 125 employees, and then we pivoted. We went down to about 30, and now the company's at 80 people. And that was a very, very a big challenge for us to kind of like maintain the same ethos, the same drive, the same meaning. But I think it was the fact that we all had very well-defined values that we stood for, that even when meaning was not there, we were able to create that meaning together, and that kept the team, and it allowed us to continuously permeate that into the new team that we have right now. So if you look at QuickUp's timeline and history, you will see that you would have walked into the office 8 years ago in London, and you walk into the office today in Dubai, and you'll get the same feeling from the people. And that's because we are very, very, very keen on and very adamant on hiring for values and hiring for that culture.
Absolutely. And I always say that when you're looking for a job, look with whom you're going to be working with.
Yeah.
It's not about the projects amazing that you're going to do. You're going to find something exciting in the project, but the people is what makes it a good place to be in.
Don't forget that you spend more time at the office than at home.
Exactly, absolutely. Basil, I'll stay with you.
Yeah.
I want to share a statement.
Yes.
And get a yes or no answer. I've heard a lot about...
Can it be a maybe?
It can always. Most of us maybe here are MBA students. We're always like, it depends, maybe. We get this answer a lot. So successful companies in the MENA region are operations-led versus product-led. Do you agree with the statement? And if not, can you give me basically examples of companies that are breaking that mold?
Like, we exist to create solutions to problems. Okay, so like and if you look at a lot of how companies have been presenting themselves recently, you go to websites, a lot of these SaaS companies across the world, and they moved from calling it a product to calling it a solution, right?
Yeah.
So it is true, and I'll give you my theory.
Yeah.
Like, the companies have been operationally led in the region. My theory is that when you are in the development cycle of a digital ecosystem, you're solving operations problems first. These are like the obvious things that you need to digitize. And then as these problems get solved, then then opportunities open up for other problems that require purely digital solutions. And that's where product companies start to exist. I'll give you the example of QuickUp. So with QuickUp, we looked at the region, we looked at the UAE first, and we're like, non-Amazon businesses can stand no chance in competing in terms of the delivery experience. We came in and we focused on making the delivery experience more convenient and faster for the non-Amazon businesses.
Yeah.
So we applied a technology solution to a operational problem. As we started to perfect that, and the market also started to open up further, we went from doing that to then realizing, okay, now we're working with a lot of these SME businesses that need to manage quite a lot of different sales channels and fickle shoppers at the end of it. How can we help them bring all of these channels together in one place? How can we help them find ways of marketing to that shopper using the touch point of delivery? And how can we bring all of that data and make sense of it to help these businesses make better decisions on growth and on profitability? And so when you think about our evolution, we went from being an operations-led business to now being a product-led business. But at the end of it, it's a solution.
Solution. Amazing. Thank you, Basil, for that. We have seen very few successful technological exits from the region, such as Careem, Namshi, InstaShop, and Jahiz. Maybe Faris, to you, how do you basically prepare for an exit as a founder? At what stage, basically, you start preparing the exit? Yeah.
So I'll give a quick opinion, but maybe Khalil can speak more to this because you've sold the business before, and you're at scale. So I'll defer to him in a second. But the way I've seen it, at least, so anecdotes, right? So invested in Careem. Careem got a very good CFO, and he really cleaned up. I think the CFO was a key component to really clean up, what that looks like. Swivel prior to going public, they got a solid CFO. And managed to do that successfully, at least for someone. Someone cashed out at some point. So I think how you prepare for an exit is really dependent on the buyer and if you're a company that's selling or a company being bought. So the best exits are companies that are bought, not sold. You do your thing, and ultimately speaking, someone will find value. But there's different companies. Let's say I sit on the board of another company, and we've had exit. People approach us for an acquisition before, and the valuations vary widely based on what the acquirer wants out of the business, frankly. And a lot of it is market cycle and luck. So I'd say Careem, when sold for 3.5. At the time, I wrote an article saying it's undervalued relative to Grab and relative to Gojek and Cabify and these guys. Mina discount this, Mina discount that. Should have been valued at 5. 6 months later, Uber went public and the share price tanked. And had the Careem exit not happened, then it wouldn't have sold. And I would almost bet that we probably wouldn't have Careem the way it looks like today because they were burning so much cash. So I think a lot of it is just like luck, but I think fundamentally speaking, if you have a profitable business, you have nothing to worry about in that sense. But maybe you can speak more about your experience. You sold your business before any of this.
I don't think. I honestly don't think there is a strategy or a certain recipe for that. that works. It's just different. It depends, again, like Faris said, depends on the business, depends on the timing, and how do you plan for that? I mean, it's a matter of, as a founder, do you want to exit your business or not? This is the first question. And then after that, what is an exit? Selling it to another company, or do you go IPO?
Yeah.
And you know, with what we've seen, at least from our area in the MENA, an IPO, in my personal opinion, is not a good idea. We don't have deep markets to list in, and if we go outside and list in New York or London or what have you, we've seen you know, what could happen. So I mean, it really depends on the situation, and each situation has its own unique
But having
approach.
said that, the two most liquid markets last year were Tadawul and Abu Dhabi.
But how deep are they? How many companies are there?
I mean, relative to the world exchanges, they were the busiest, largest number of listings, largest had. But I'm with you, but I do think that option is hopefully going to become increasing. And I agree that our liquidity is dependent on that materializing.
So today, I mean, when you look at an exchange and when you look at a stock, and what is a successful stock? Is it the price, or how does it operate, and how is it traded? When you talk about all these exchanges that we have in our part of the world, how many of them have market makers?
Yeah, we don't
Zero.
have market makers because we don't also have leverage trading or options trading.
Exactly. So we are still not there
Yeah.
as an exchange in any of the exchanges that we have in the MENA to be a sophisticated or an advanced exchange where you have derivatives, leverage, or market makers, which create an issue. So today, if you look at a lot of these listed successful businesses that are listed in Dubai or in KSA or wherever, they are either banks or insurance companies with majority shareholders that are either the families that have founded them or big funds, and there's not much liquidity there.
Yeah.
So the float is always very low.
Yeah.
So that doesn't talk.
And that artificially keeps the price high.
Exactly. So that does not really reflect the actual. So and then you look at fundamentals versus price, and you see that the fundamentals of the company are excellent. They're doing excellent revenues, excellent net income, but the price is not reflective of that. You look at the Arab Bank, one of the largest banks.
12% dividend.
12% dividend, and then the price tanks. So you know there is not. So to answer your question, I don't think there is a common strategy that can be implemented. I think it's very different and for each and every founder or every company.
Amazing. No?
I think this is a very important point, to be honest. Yani, what are we all building for at the end? Yani, the elephant in the room is that, right? Very difficult to list, even though there's close to 100 companies lined up to list on Tadawul. It's very difficult to list a company on Tadawul that's not profitable. We don't have options and leverage trading, which creates for much more volume and much more, let's say, institutional investors to start taking a look. You know, Jahez is public, but the volume is very low. Managed to maintain relatively its market cap. Private equity is non-existent, right? You need private equity, whether or not you believe private equity plays a key role in tech is besides the point. That culture of M&A needs to be there through private equity. Local entities don't really acquire. The only one is Namshi Amar. What else? Nothing comes to my mind, maybe just because Mom's World, for example, managed to sell, I think, to Tamer Group. But really, you need these things for that flywheel to continue. Otherwise, if you just depend on Uber to knock on your door, you know, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough one.
This is actually one of the reasons why we also focused our strategy to expanding into the US market, because if we can acquire revenue in the US market, our chances for exit are going to be much larger. And because it's a SaaS platform, there are no borders, we said, okay, why not? Let's go into this opportunity. I was actually at a class here with Professor Ali, private equity class, and he had a map of the world on the screen. And he was like, look at the percentage of exits all over the world. Look at the percentage of private equity investments all over the world, and the MENA region had about 0.7% of all private equity investments. And he said the reason for that is because of the lack of exits. And
also the failure of a big firm a few years ago that Abraj capital that really wiped off the industry off the map, يعني, in the Middle East. But yes.
True, but and then also
Yes, there's
no exits. But that was a kind of like a light bulb moment for me personally when doing the strategy for the business. And as a tech business, okay, where are we going? Yes, we do want to be profitable, but we also want to look for an exit. And I think looking at all your options and trying to expand out of the MENA region will give businesses more opportunities.
But I think also founders, usually, you have to ask the founder, what is your end game, right?
Exactly.
And this is something we discussed earlier. And what is your end game? Is it an exit, or are you, because most of the founders, when they come up with the idea and they start building this business and the startup starts flourishing or moving and creating revenue, they're very emotional and very attached to that. So are they building a sustainable business, or do they want to sell it, and then after they sell it or IPO it, it fails, and then what is it just about making money, or is it about really solving the problem and creating jobs and creating a sustainable business? So it's different.
It's not just reliant on the founder, because you also have the funds that are financing, and they're
Exactly.
looking for that exit.
Absolutely.
So at some point, it becomes a bit out of the control of the founder.
No matter what you think, the moment you take VC money, even if
Then
it's
you're
20%,
geared
then it's
towards
their
it.
business.
Yeah.
That's their business. Yani they have preferred shares. You know, you're part of that story. They're not. It's become it's very difficult.
So maybe this is a great segue to my next question, which is, what inspired you to become an entrepreneur? And basically, do you see yourself growing into the next Amazon, or sustainability? We're talking about sustainability. Maybe I would like to hear from each one of you in a one sentence or less.
Inspiring to be an entrepreneur, I think, for me, is solving a problem.
If my hair hits it, is that going to be a problem?
Nope.
Okay, so I'll just
Hot mic.
Mike's inside.
Yeah.
Maya's hot mic.
Maya is testing her mic. Yeah.
So for me, it's solving a problem. It's creating a solution for a set of problems, or a problem that is exciting. Do I want to be the question is, do I want to be the next?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean,
You want to enjoy life.
You want to?
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it just, again, it depends. For each entrepreneur, I guess, what is your end game? And I think that's the question.
Absolutely. Noor, to you?
For me, it's about creating value. Would I want to be the next Amazon? Yes, of course. I like everything really big. I like really trying to make it huge. So for me, this is what drives me to be an entrepreneur. Creating value that one day, hopefully, the whole world can see, can use, can touch, can feel. That's what drives me to be an entrepreneur.
Faris?
I guess specifically with regard to Tuhun, because it's in the mental health domain, I struggled a lot with panic attacks, panic disorder when I was in college 10 years ago.
This is why the mental wellness idea started.
Absolutely. So it was very difficult. It was a very difficult part of my life where I struggled to find the right health, and time to treatment was, well over 2 years. And I guess my mission is to help Arabs solve that. We're an Arab culture. We don't have any employees who don't speak Arabic on the team, and we really want to focus on that segment. And we see the impact, and that's what's driving me.
Amazing. Basil?
I mean, to be honest, mine's going to sound a bit cliche, but it's my father. He was my inspiration.
Nice.
Great entrepreneur. He took Lebanese resilience to another level and inspired me to want to do this. I would like to do the same for my unborn child. But yeah, I don't want to be Amazon. Not interesting. My interest is in solving problems and creating solutions and building teams. So I would like to do that again and again, and take learnings forward. So
Amazing.
yeah,
Amazing.
that's
Hopefully. My last question to you, each one of you. What's a single advice you wish someone told you about before starting your own venture? Maybe we'll start with Noor.
For me, it would have been great if I had more advice and more insight on the market in the MENA region. It's something that we do lack. We lack a lot of information. So if we had that type of market research, I think it would have saved us a lot of trial and error.
I think patience is something important also that
Very
learned earlier, that you might have the best business model in the world, but you need to be patient, especially in decision making here in the MENA region. You need to be patient and take your time with it. I think that's quite important.
You know the marshmallow theory?
What is it, the marshmallow theory?
Stanford did a study, and basically they had two sets of kids, and there were the kids that delayed taking their marshmallow for a bigger reward that ended up succeeding better in life.
Yeah,
So yeah, patience.
patience.
But like for me, it's start fast, right? And that was, I think that was the biggest learning. Is like the quicker you start, the quicker you're going to fail and learn.
Amazing.
I think for me, it continues to be something I'm coming to terms with is don't build for scale. Build to solve a problem and then figure out how to scale it.
Amazing.
Because I built with the intent of scaling, and then I guess got too clouded by that, and then we lost a bit of quality in what we did, and now we're going back to focusing on that.
That is a very
That's
important
very
one.
important,
I learned that lesson the hard way.
Lessons learned.
Yeah.
I would have loved to take this conversation even further, but just being mindful of time, I would like to thank you for the wealth of knowledge and expertise. And I think a lot of things will be seated in the brains of many amongst us here today. And maybe to end on a high note, maybe pathways to startup success can have different timelines and different forms. But I think the MENA region is redefining its global position for creating value from entrepreneurs, from talent, from creative minds for a better future for us all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.